All set. Good evening and welcome to another exciting meeting of the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission. Today is March 25th, 2019. It's approximately 6:35 p.m. First, I've got to ask, is there anyone here for public forum? Seeing no one, we'll get into our regular business. Mr. Jennings, have you warrants, minutes, abatements for us tonight?
Sure. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of March 11th, 2019 as printed.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Next, make a motion to accept the warrants for review and signature as printed as follows. Osterman Propane, $1,456.74. Viola, $184. Beta, $2,808.02. Bigelow Electric, $1,885 for a grand total of $6,333.76.
Second.
Any discussion on any of these?
Just a quick explanation on Bigelow's. What does that include, Peter, what they do? Is that just for the generators?
The annual service for the
Annual
generators,
service?
yes.
For all of our generators?
Yes. So they go around, they change all the oils, check all the fluids,
Yeah,
run them.
very good, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's it.
That's it.
Okay, if that's the case, we'll move right along. Our first appointment tonight is Veolia. And I see Zach and John in the audience. Come forward, please, and tell us what's happening.
Good evening. Just want to cover the MOR for the month of February. Health and safety, no health and safety issues. Safety checklist completed. February's safety training was on fire prevention and response, as well as extinguisher use. We had no NIPD's permits exceedances for the month of February. Operations and maintenance. The weekly generator full load exercises were completed as stated in last month's MOR. On the 14th, during the weekly generator full load exercise, we had a breaker trip on the main power coming into the building. This caused a momentary loss of power in the plant. That caused a couple of the older VFDs in the facility to basically die. So we needed to replace those, which we did. Our critical alarms were tested. There was no issues. RBCs 1 and 2 are still in the process of seeding. We're seeing signs of ammonia removal currently. Pump station activities. All of the pump station's alarm tests were completed. Full load generator tests were completed. The MTAs were sampled on the 6th and the 25th. On February 3rd, the North Main Street pump station had a high level alarm caused by the pressure transducer level system. On the 12th, that system was replaced by LaFleur Electric and is now operating back as intended. On the 11th, the North Sturbridge pump station, during pump station inspections, we determined that there was some damaged pipe inside the wet well. There's some pictures attached of that. On the 25th, we went back out to the North Sturbridge pump station with Helgerson, and they pumped down the wet well so we could get a better image of the damage and the extent of the damage. at that time, one of the floats, which was older and the wiring was a little brittle, it actually broke and required that to be replaced. And the grinder pumps, on the 18th, 198 Sunset Drive, we had a high-level alarm due to a trip breaker. The pump was shorting out, causing the breaker to trip. On the 24th, we had 22 Hollywood Drive, high-level alarm and trip breaker. When the breaker was reset, the pump wouldn't shut off, so we upgraded the system. On the 27th, 59 North Sturbridge Road, the resident had concern about the grinder pump running too long and a higher electricity bill than normal. The pump wouldn't shut off, so we had LaFord Electric come in and replace a relay inside the box. It was an already upgraded system. On the 29th, Sunset Drive Annex, there was a high-level alarm and a trip breaker. The resident's wet well had a significant amount of grease inside of it, so we had to call in Helgerson to pump out the wet well. The pump also had to be replaced at that time. There were 13 dig safes marked out for February. Some additional remarks. Due to the North Sturbridge Road pump station, we only have one of the two pumps in the station operational at this time. Back in 2016, the repairs were made to the other pump, which had the similar instance happen with a broken discharge pipe. At that time, they had Weston and Sampson come in to do the repairs. When they did that repair, they noticed that there was deterioration on the mating surfaces of the pump base. So new bases and pumps were purchased at that time, but only one of the new pumps was ever installed. So Peter and I did a scope of work where the repairs would be done to the pipes, and we'd also change out the bases and the floats at that time, just to kind of go through and take care of all the issues at once. Towards the end of last year, one of the treatment plant's COMAG clarifiers had failed. We replaced the motor, gearbox, and VFD that drive the sludge collection mechanism in the clarifier. Prior to returning the equipment to service, we wanted to get down inside the clarifier and inspect the bottom half of it and make sure that there was nothing getting hung up. When we went down into the clarifier, we noticed that there was a significant amount of damage to the torque tube that goes down into and kind of delivers the power to the rake mechanism. So we're in the process of right now of seeing the extent of the damage and pricing out what it's gonna take to bring that service back to 100%. And lastly, as of March 19th, the vacant operator position has been filled, and we're back at full staff. Any questions?
Anybody any questions?
I would just expand a little bit on that torque tube issue. We have been in contact with the vendor to try to explain why, when it failed so catastrophically without having some sort of protection to prevent the type of damage we saw. So we're waiting for them to get back to us, so that, we make the investment in a new one. We want to see if there's something we can do to prevent a similar occurrence, not only for the one that's going to be repaired, but potentially the one that's online now. When you look at the photos of the damage,
I didn't include any of the photos of this. That was is gonna cover that.
Next month?
Yeah,
Okay.
when we're able to get that cleaned out and get a better view of the extent of the damage.
So when you see the photos of the damage, you'll understand why we think that it's important to provide some level of protection to the superstructure, if you will, from it being allowed to do what it did. Seems odd that it would be allowed to cause such damage without stopping for some other, through some other torque limit or VFD overload or something like that, so. More to come on that, basically.
If I may, was the damage a buildup of pressure and then it just kind of blew, or?
We don't know, I mean, and I apologize, I thought we had included pictures, so I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of questions that the pictures will explain, but there's a torque tube, which is really just a shaft that connects the rakes, which spin and collect all the sludge. That sheared. We didn't know it had sheared. What we knew is we had a broken gearbox up top. So we ordered a new gearbox, and we took the gearbox apart. We could see that the shaft of the gearbox had twisted, which was pretty unusual to see a stainless steel shaft of about an inch thick twist without snapping. But we didn't know yet what had happened down the bottom. But then when you looked at the bottom, the torque tube, which is like a 4-inch tube
Yep.
of steel, actually sheared in half, and then the upper part twisted similar to the shaft up top. So it experienced a significant amount of torque, so much so that it broke the bottom and the top and the gearbox,
As well as the VFD.
as well as taking the VFD out.
The rake mechanism moves so slow, it's geared down so low that it's a tremendous amount of torque. But normally there's some sort of fail-safe that prevents something like this from occurring.
Like a
causing-
clutch, you know what I mean, that would
Right.
sense that. and-
Sometimes those things are on a clutch mechanism to it.
Or a pin, usually
Yeah,
there's a shear
shear
pin
pin.
that'll, like in your snow blower, you know what I mean? It'll
Yeah.
shear the pin before it breaks. We don't have any of that protection on the system, so we've been in contact with the vendor to see, if there's something in addition we can add to, like I said, to prevent, because you wouldn't think that it would do the kind of damage it did, without, having some sort of protection.
And no indication of what caused, it had to be a clot.
Yeah, Zach was down in there himself, and we found no debris. Talking with the vendor, he seemed to think that maybe it went out of kilter a little, but there's no evidence of that. Or a piece of debris in there, but there's no debris at the bottom, so we're not, it could have been fatigue, having been online for a long period of time, perhaps.
And this piece of equipment has been in place since
The
the
startup.
beginning of the system, was it 18, 20 years ago?
No,
No, this is
This is the
part of,
COMAG,
this is
so,
part of the
Oh, part of the
COMAG
COMAG,
system.
yeah.
this is the COMAG
So it's
clarifier.
what, 6, 7 years
yeah,
old?
Yeah.
8
roughly.
maybe?
So that torque tube rides on a guide post on the bottom of the clarifier tub, which seems, I don't know if it sits up maybe 6 inches or 8 inches. And where the picture shows the torque tube sheared off, it seems like that where it rides on the outside of the guide post, something might have got in there, caused it to heat up or just weld to the guide post, and that sheared it right there. Fairly clean. There is some
Yeah.
rough edges where it sheared, so it's hard to know if that happened first, and then that caused some other restriction when it went off kilter, because there's no longer a guide post on the bottom for it, which caused the gearbox and the upper shaft to twist. So the upper shaft that twisted is actually keyed into the gearbox, and it's like John said, it's about a 1-inch stainless steel shaft,
Wow.
and it twisted but didn't break. So it's really strange, and there's
Yeah.
no indication that it got hot, because there's no bluing of the metal or anything like that, so
A lot of pressure, though.
that one most definitely.
yeah. I mean, if
Most
you could
definitely.
imagine a 1-inch stainless steel shaft twisted like a piece of
Oh, yeah, yeah.
noodle,
So with all that resistance caused the motor to probably use quite a bit more amperage, which caused the VFD to melt, to kind of short out, so.
So is the motor still operable?
The motor was replaced, the VFD had to be replaced, and the gearbox was replaced as well. So kind
I
of,
bet there's a problem somewhere else, though. Something caused that to bind up.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever know what came first, whether the torque tube failed below the surface of the water, which caused all the damage upstream, or whether the gearbox, or if it all happened at the same time. Looking at the way the shaft twisted itself, and given how slowly it turns, my guess is it happened over time, just slowly, like Zach said, there's a lot of torque to that gearbox, but in any event, you wouldn't want to repeat this same problem, so there should be something that should trip much easier than the amount of force it took to bend that metal and shear the torque tube.
Now, have we already replaced one of these?
No.
So it's only a single system, it's not a twin system?
No, there are separate systems. The exact duplicate is on the other side, which is the one we're not worried about, but, if it happened to this side, it could potentially happen to the other, so.
Right,
Right now, we only have one side, so if we were to lose the other one, we lose our
so
capacity.
you got a brother and sister the same age?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Okay,
Same setup, same
yeah,
design.
and what's the budget? What's the?
We don't know
We're-
yet,
we don't have a
we're
solution
waiting.
That's why I kinda just included it as a comment, because we're still trying to gather some information about,
Zach's
what it's gonna take to do the repairs, and we wanna get some better idea of the damage down below.
Does it almost mean that you're just gonna, let me put it this way, does this unit come in a package?
It,
We replace, because it seems like everything's broken in this thing except the base.
yeah,
And
it definitely
base may be
is a
suspect.
manufacturer package, it comes as a package, but the parts are individual. Like, we replaced the gearbox, the drive, and the motor. At the time, that's all we knew what was wrong. It wasn't until we get in there that we actually found the torque tube had twisted, so we're gonna need to replace the torque tube as well.
How long is the shaft?
12 feet, maybe?
Yeah.
12 feet,
12,
from here to the
15.
ceiling, it's in the
Yeah.
tank.
Okay.
And the blades are down at the bottom, it's like a rake arm assembly. Like Peter said, it sits on like a pin, and the tube goes over the pin and rotates around the pin.
There's still a lot of debris down the bottom, so Zach's
Right.
plan is to get Helgerson up there to try and
Suck everything up.
clean it out, spray it down, clean it out, and really get a
Get
good
some
look
good
at what's going on.
Yeah, we kinda.
Talk to the manufacturer, get some better pictures to them, explain to them again what happened, and see if they can try and help us figure out what caused the problem and the best way to repair it. So,
Because that shaft is as long as it is, does that make it prone to twisting?
again, I think we need to really talk to the manufacturer and see what I can't imagine they designed it so it's prone to twist like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it spins very, very slowly. I mean, almost to the point where you have to kind of look at it for a little while to make sure it's turning. That's how slowly it turns.
But the gearbox up above creates enormous amount of torque
Yeah,
Yes.
because of the motor just running and
Exactly.
running and
Yeah,
Just
the
wants to-
gearing.
edge along.
exactly.
Huh.
But like I said, normal gearboxes, normal applications like this, there is some mechanism designed to trip before damage like that occurs, whether it's an electrical trip or a
Yeah.
mechanical trip, something trips.
Either
and that
thermal
didn't happen.
protection or something like that.
Something like that. So, it could just be a flaw in their design, but there are ways that we're planning on
Oh.
figuring out how to prevent it.
And this runs every day?
Every day, 24/7.
24/7. It's been running for 8 years.
Well, as long as as long as that side of the train is running,
Okay.
so.
What, does it go back and forth?
Yeah, we
We-
do alternate.
Yeah,
It
so
alternates?
we can either run one or the other, or both at the same time.
Okay, so it's not on a timer?
No.
No, it's more we balance it out to get, even wear on the equipment.
Okay, okay. You know how some pumps have duplex.
Yeah,
pumps,
no, you're
on,
right.
off, on,
No,
off.
in this case, it really depend on, like Zach said, preventive maintenance, you wanna take one down, we'll let the other one run, et cetera.
It's hard to know what's been done for preventive maintenance over the last, I guess, 6 or 7 years since it's been installed also. Because the sediment that falls into the bottom of that clarifier is very metallic, correct? I mean,
It's the
where all your metals
magnetite
go.
sludge, yeah.
So, it's hard to know if it was taken out of service and cleaned and inspected as it should have been periodically or not.
Okay. Again, you want to try to find the reason so that you want to be able to make sure it doesn't happen again. And if it's maintenance, then you definitely want to.
Yeah,
Put it in the schedule.
But, like I said,
And again, it's hard to know, it's a possibility, without having their, I guess Weston and Sampson's maintenance schedule, to know if they did take it offline and and clean it out and suck it down and do any type of inspection, we won't know that.
Okay,
So we should have an answer for you, hopefully, for your next meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
To at least let you know what we found and what the solution is moving forward.
clearer images of what we've seen.
well, it's a good project, you got your feet wet.
He was right in there.
The new guy.
Yeah.
Nice presentation, thank you, Sam.
Do you want me to talk about this?
Sure, I mean, so the North Sturbridge Road Pump Station, we mailed out that request for prices to a couple different contractors. And John's also gonna have hopefully one of his crews from, I guess, Rhode Island, get us a price to do the repair as well. And once we get that back, we'll be able to present that to you and move forward on fixing that North Sturbridge Road Pump Station.
John, what's the fix?
For the North Sturbridge, it's to do exactly what was done on the other side. Basically reconnect the pipe, re-anchor it to the wall, and then fix the base and install the new pump that's already been purchased.
And all this can be done from the inside, or
No.
you need to do it from the outside as well?
Well, you gotta go inside the tank, inside the wet well.
Yeah.
It's a submersible station, so the
Yeah,
pump,
yeah.
yeah. So we're gonna have to bypass the station, or at least plug it, drain it, and try to keep it from flowing in while the guys are inside. It's a relatively low station, so, and it was done once before, so, just trying to get the best price we can to get it fixed.
So we repaired this before?
The exact same problem occurred on the other side,
Okay.
and that's been repaired, now this is this side.
Okay, okay.
At the time that the first side was repaired, the other side was fine, it's just, I finally went,
Yep.
same condition. And talking with the previous vendor, they said just from that constant coming on and off, it just loosens up the connection. So they installed a bracket to hold that force main, that pipe, discharge pipe, a little stiffer, so you don't get that. You know, it's all PVC 2-inch pipe,
4 inch.
4-inch.
Yeah, and also when they did the first fix to the opposite side in 2016, they replaced kind of one of the weak links, which was a section that's 2-inch Schedule 80 PVC. They replaced that with stainless steel to give it a little bit more strength, so the plan is to do the same on the other side.
Thank you.
So the next thing we have, Mr. Chair, is a proposal for you guys to look at regarding the headworks, the chemical upgrades for the headworks building for alkalinity control that we've talked about the last few meetings. So if you want, John can
Yeah,
take us
so-
through this PowerPoint.
Just in building upon the headworks analysis that was done by Ty and Bond to address the ammonia violations that we experienced over the last couple of years. You know, one of their recommendations was to get the 2 RBCs that are offline, online, and those, as Zach indicated, are currently online and starting to see some removal of ammonia, so that tells us that the biomass is accumulating. So we're in pretty good shape there. What's left to be done there is the covers, which Peter has been able to get the same quote from the company that did the aftermarket for the first 6 of them. So now we're just trying to get some pricing for the installation. But in the second big thing that Ty and Bond recommended was to address the alkalinity. We talked about at the last meeting, how we currently add it by hand. But because we're not there on the weekends, when all the major load comes in, as well as not being able to address alkalinity in real time, it's always reactionary, it's always, we measure it after it's the next day. We looked at 3 different types of, well, in the presentation package, you'll see that the first slide is kind of the background. Basically what was identified in the headworks analysis. The second slide, this is currently how it's being added. It's added by bag into the post side of the high core unit. During the time that we're there, we add 200 pounds per day at 4 intervals to try to spread out the amount that we can add. But again, because we're only there 4 hours on the weekend, it all gets added within a short period of time. And you really want to match the alkalinity with the incoming ammonia load, because you want to have the alkalinity available to the biomass at the time that they're seeing the ammonia. So what we did is we brought our CPM group out, and they explored three options. The first one was to install a bulk silo, so we could take sodium bicarbonate in bulk and then meter it in over time via a screw conveyor. Budgetary estimates for that are about $1 million, and kind of broke down where those land, about 600 in equipment, about 160 in labor, some engineering, and then contingency is just a number. The second option was to install a dry feeding system like we do currently inside the headworks, using a bulk bag system. The advantage of that is it can be a smaller modular unit, be inside, not requiring any external construction activities. The budgetary estimate for that sits about $648,000. Again, equipment's about $360,000, some labor and engineering, and then a slight contingency, which again is just the same 20% contingency number built into all three options. The first two options are using the existing chemical that we're adding for alkalinity, which is a powder material. And then the third option is, well, before I get into the third option, the fourth slide is how we currently add sodium hydroxide to adjust pH. Sodium hydroxide can be used for both pH control and alkalinity. The picture isn't pretty, but I thought it was important for the commission to see kind of some of the hazards and some of the conditions that we're working with respect to this current system, which, when I got there, is the thing that keeps me up at night most, is this, working with this material, our guys are exposed to the biggest hazard they experience on a daily basis. Fully trained, fully protected, but it still exists as a hazard, and that's because we transfer 55-gallon drums of sodium hydroxide daily into this feed system that was designed by somebody. And what we're required to do is carry these 55-gallon drums around the building, up the back, into the hallway, put it on a dolly and drag it all the way up to where this system is, and then transfer it by hand via a chemical pump into these barrels, which are permanently placed underneath the feed pumps. You can see the white material on the top of the barrel is the dried caustic. Because caustic is a liquid and it doesn't mix with water very well, there's no easy way to clean it, so you have to wait till it crystallizes and then scoop it up. It's much easier to handle that way. But as you can see, it's messy, it's not clean, and it does expose our guys to potential contact hazards. So that's the current system, and that again it's a supplement to the alkalinity. We use caustic to adjust pH both in the COMAG system and in the final effluent to maintain permit compliance. So the idea was to go with a third option, which was to install a liquid sodium hydroxide system, which could do both things. It could add the alkalinity and pH control to the headworks that we need for nitrification, as outlined in the tie and bond report, but also improve upon the existing pH control system that we use for effluent and COMAG pH adjustment. Preliminary cost for that would be about $200,000 in equipment, $60,000 in labor, only $30,000 engineering. It's a simpler design for a budgetary estimate of about $360,000. What this gives us is complete new system. Does away with the old system, builds you a brand new system. A fourth option is to try to reuse some of the equipment we have currently, the majority of that being the existing pumps, which you can see on the previous couple slides. And that reduces some of the equipment costs, bringing the budgetary estimate down to $300,000. And we would propose is to, the picture you see here is it's the part of the building where the forklift is kept, where the chemical is stored before use, and it's also where the ferric chloride feed system is located. So the plan would be to cordon off a portion of that room with two bulk tanks, which would then feed the headworks and the comag and effluent from one contained system. Very neat, very clean, no material handling. The chemical would come in like ferric does. It gets offloaded by a truck. No one touches it. Goes into a tank. The tank feeds the pumps, and the pumps deliver it. So you avoid the material handling aspect of the chemical as well as the contact between the operator.
That's the same for option 3 and 4.
It is, yeah, the only difference between option 3 and 4, and I termed it light, is we could reuse some of the existing equipment. Mostly just the pumps, because they do function. It's just a function of whether you'd want new
But,
versus old.
Option 3 gives you SCADA control and tracking, correct? So it gives you true 24/7 coverage for alkalinity control?
Correct.
Where
What we,
option 4 won't?
that's correct. Option 4 would keep the pH SCADA control that we have, but not add SCADA control for the alkalinity, the one in the headworks.
I think that's a key point to focus on, is option 3 allows that continuous alkalinity measurement and control, so that on a Sunday afternoon or Sunday night or early Monday morning, when we get heavy flows from the MTAs, it will automatically make that adjustment for alkalinity where we don't have any staff on site.
Right, again, and that's consistent with Ty and Bond's recommendation, that's a necessary improvement to ensure full NIPD's compliance for ammonia. Not having that, having the ability to be proactive, to see the demand and then match it with chemical addition versus coming in the next day and kind of looking back to see what had happened and trying to, guess as to what tomorrow would bring. So, that's the advantage that SCADA does bring you, is that real online, real-time measurement and application of that chemical. Option 3, you'll see a picture. This is actually a similar upgrade we did in our Seymour, Connecticut facility. And you can see it's a tank with pumps behind a containment area, nice and neat. Everything is contained within a chemical spill area. And we're proposing to do a similar install into that room that's in option 4 picture. What's nice about that too is it keeps all your chemical feed and systems in the same room. So, as opposed to having something in a hallway, which we currently have, and something in this room for ferric.
Does option 3 need DEP approval?
They all will. Our budgetary estimate includes all of that, design, report, submittal, and approval from DEP. So yes. And they've actually the reason we had to go with the bag system was because the previous contractor was adding bags into a tank and then turning it into a solution and pumping it, trying to achieve the same thing we're gonna do with options 3 or 4. But it had no spill containment, and DEP came in at their last inspection and basically cited us for that and said, you can't have that. It has to be within a containment area, it has to be done the right way, basically. So we had to eliminate that, and now we're doing it by hand. So,
Just to back up for a
Sure.
second on what you just said, John, is if we built the containment area for the current system we have, then there would have been no citing and no violation.
well, the challenge is, there's only so much solubility that you can get with the powder. In other words, the powdered material you can only add so much into a volume of water before it just precipitates out, and then it becomes, it's almost like putting lime in water, you only can get so much in there. So the challenge they had is they couldn't, even with the old system before you were cited on it, they couldn't add enough to meet the demand throughout the day. And it was a very labor-intensive process. I do have some pictures of the old system I can provide to show you what it was like. But guys were lifting bags up on platforms, pouring it in, filling it with water, mixing it, and then discharging it through a pump system. But they were challenged with adding enough into the volume of water that they could contain to meet the demand throughout the day.
And if I may, when the system was first put in place, we didn't have the demand that we currently have. And that's why more and more of this hazardous chemical needs to be added to it. It's because of the readings.
Well, we're certainly, I don't want to speculate as to, you know, the change. I mean, certainly, we know what the demand is now, the headworks analysis showed it. Ty and Bond, you know, did their engineering and said, yes, this is what's happening to you on weekends. I just don't think the data was, there was enough data previously to know what they didn't know, basically.
All right, but we were passing all our permit levels.
I guess, yeah. No, we're not now. I shouldn't say we're not now. We do, except for instances particularly like Columbus Day, you know, some of the other
Busy
ones.
weekends, yeah.
But the two issues are, one, the old system was told it can't be used, so we had to come up with something safer and newer. And secondly, you know, we know what the data says now, which, you know, I stand behind. I can't stand behind data that I didn't collect and analyze prior. So, so, you know, moving on to the final slide, which is kind of the delivery method for if you were to move forward. As you know, in Article 7 of our contract, we contemplated the ability to help the commission in a very fiduciary way achieve some capital modifications. There's a typical design bid build type approach that the commission can take, where you hire an engineer, they design it, somebody puts together the bid packages, sends it out, they come in, someone gets hired and someone oversees it. Maybe it's the engineer, maybe it's Peter, and then it gets built. And then there's the design bid, kind of the approach we think is where it all gets rolled under us, and we basically handle all of that on the commission's, on the behalf. Single point of responsibility, you know, you get a guaranteed price, there's no change orders, it is what it is, and it's delivered quicker and faster, meeting all the necessary DEP and building requirements. And it's typically about 20 to 25% less expensive on average, so. So that's kind of the approach. We know there's a need, we know that it's the next big requirement, according to the Ty and Bond report, to put the plant in its best position to meet current loading and future loading. What I didn't discuss is the system that we're proposing is gonna be sized so that it takes you into the future as well. It's sized so that it meets the current load, but also can meet the full load at some point down the road, should you ever get there. The system that was previously in place and the one we have now, it can't, it barely meets the current load, forget the future. I mean, there's just no way, without, you know, being there round the clock and adding more and more bags, type of thing. But having bulk, just like the ferric tied into SCADA, whatever the load is, the system responds. And it responds automatically and instantly. That combined with the 10 RBCs up and functioning gives, you know, the commission, the treatment plant, its full capacity. Anything beyond that, you know, would require an upgrade to the plant. And Ty and Bond explored in their headworks analysis other things that they could possibly do. We talked about modifying the EQ tanks, putting in some better diffusers, et cetera, but based on their analysis, the best bang for the buck was add more alkalinity and get the 2 RBCs online, and that's where we're heading.
And I guess the last thing to mention, John, is the NIPD's permit. And regardless of what happens with that, this would be the first step to probably solve any additional type of, I guess, reduction in limits that we would get with that. So it's not, I don't think that whatever, if you decide to do this, that you're gonna spend this money, do this improvement, and then have to just discard it in the future when the next when our NIPD's permit comes out. So.
Yeah, no matter what, you're going to have to remove nitrogen, and to do that, you know, the science tells you need X amount of alkalinity to do that, and you're gonna have to add the alkalinity, and this system's what it's designed to do, is to add alkalinity.
You looking for any kind of a decision on this from?
No,
us
I'm
tonight?
looking to present, these are your options. You know, again, in keeping with what the headworks analysis told us we needed, we're just providing you with solutions to it, to take under advisement. We do know that we've got the permit season coming up. Starting in June, ammonia goes down to 1.4.
4-3.
4-3, something like that. We believe the RBCs will be ready by then. We're already, like I said, starting to see removal of ammonia. But obviously, our alkalinity system isn't gonna be ready, so we're still very vulnerable. But the sooner you make a decision in terms of how to address alkalinity, the sooner you're ready for the future.
Mr. Chair, with town meeting coming up in May, I think if the board has any interest in moving forward with this project at all, we should discuss that, and I think we can do a transfer at town meeting to fund this project if you want to move forward with it. I'm not sure, or if you have any questions or you need more information from John, then we can ask him for that as well, but I think it's important to, if you're interested in doing this upgrade, to do it sooner than later and get it approved, get the funding approved at town meeting, and then John can go ahead and get that done throughout the summer.
We've got the money, it's just a matter of transferring it to the proper account so we can spend it?
Correct. At the special town meeting, you created a sewer stabilization account. You transferred $1.243 million into it. In the last quarter, Donna said it's made just over $6,800 in interest. So right now, there's $1.249 million sitting in there. And I believe we left $500,000 in retained earnings. That would still be sitting there as well,
And
so.
more than enough to cover it then.
Correct, but with the sewer stabilization, I think it's a good, that's what it's there for. It's money there that you guys have saved over the past so that you can fund these type of capital improvements.
Did I get the feeling that anybody like you, you, John, is kind of leaning toward option 3? Or am I reading something into it?
No,
that
I
you
think,
haven't
yeah,
said?
I mean, obviously, the more automation you have, again, the idea being to put the plant in its best position to meet future loads, but current loads as well, and I think option 3 is the best, because tying it all into SCADA gives us that ability to be able to respond in real time when we're not there, to add the appropriate alkalinity. Because we all know, we can't predict, although we sort of know what happens on weekends and on Columbus Day and things like that. It's always when, just like everyone else, we're not there. We're probably on the Mass Pike ourselves. So,
It also tracks it for you as well. It's not only automating it, but also tracking it so you can look back and see actual data, not just try and take a sample after it happened to see where the alkalinity may be.
Something else to note is options 1 and 2, how they add alkalinity to the headworks, but they also don't address the condition of the current caustic feed system, where that obviously needs some attention as well, so.
Maybe I got a false fear, and we're not going with option number 1 or 2 anyway, probably, but is there any danger with this powder caking and not being able to flow and you're unaware of it for some time, or?
well, that's the exact point that, we talked about with the old system, that's exactly what happened. If you add too much too soon, it
Well,
just
you're
drops to
talking
the
adding.
bottom
I'm
and creates a little
talking before
patty
you
at
get
the
to
bottom.
add it,
Exactly.
humidity or something else getting into the, so it's not flowing properly into the system.
Option
Yeah.
3 is a liquid.
No, we're
Yeah,
talking
for
about
option 1 and 2.
Which we're not gonna use apparently. so.
Other plants that are typically bigger, the bigger the plant, the less likely you are to, you're more apt to wanna go with a bulk dry system like a silo, things like that. But because of our size, it lends itself to a liquid system. Liquid's more expensive, because it has to be trucked and it has to be manufactured. But because of the relative size of the plant, a liquid system lends itself. And to Zach's point, we're already using it. It's already part of the existing. It's just not being used for alkalinity, just for pH. So, kind of kills two birds with one stone, if you will. But to your point, that's why we spread out adding the powder now, because we don't want to just dump 200 pounds in here and just have it create a pile. So my guys are going out there in the morning, and then at 11, and then at 1, and then at 3, to kind of spread that out over time.
If I may, so we're already using in liquid form the product that would be used in this proposal.
Into the COMAG,
Yeah,
ahead of the COMAG system, and at the final effluent, we have the COMAG uses ferric chloride, which is an acid, so it drives the pH down. In order for the chemistry to work in the COMAG, we have to maintain a certain pH level. So when we add the acid, we have to add the caustic, which raises the pH to get that optimum pH level. And then after it leaves COMAG and goes through UV, and before it leaves the plant, we're measuring pH because we're required to maintain pH in a certain range. So we have another feed system there to just trim the pH to make sure we never go below or above the permit requirement
And you're trimming that with the chemical?
with the chemical.
Okay, so, first of all, this is I firmly believe that the current hand system of adding in the powder is just not, it's just not a good practice to be doing at this point in time. We should try to correct that as soon as possible. The current delivery system that we have of the chemical that we would use at, we'd use it at that gets used in the headworks, is that where it gets used?
Right now, it gets used at the COMAG
COMAG,
and the effluent, leaving the plant.
Okay,
This would be, a third place would be at the front of the plant,
at the front.
which is where the powder is currently added.
Okay, so we would replace the powder. Now,
Correct.
the delivery system that's there at the, at the COMAC,
Correct.
okay, that system could, similar system could be put at the headworks.
Potentially. The issue with this chemical is it has to be warm. It can't fall below 55 degrees or it
So we have to
turns,
control the ambient.
yeah, which is challenging in the headworks building. It's not challenging in the building that we're proposing.
Okay,
So heat would be an issue,
so it almost have to.
and then you'd have two
Build a
separate
room around.
containment. Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
if you're gonna use the same chemical, you're better off putting it in one place and just delivering it with tubing where you need it as opposed to setting
Right,
up separate
right,
stations.
right.
And what we're trying to also avoid is material handling, moving 55-gallon
No, and I
drums.
see that's-
So we'd want bulk wherever we could put it.
I agree, John, that's the elephant in the room. As
Correct.
far as handling it, is what I
Correct.
see. As far as meeting a permit, I think by adding on the two RBCs, that should help.
Absolutely should help.
Okay, and we also have the other option, is we can go to the, speaking of elephants, we can go to the one who's bringing all this ammonia to our treatment plant, and because they're exceeding the limits of discharge, we could tell them to pre-treat, then we wouldn't have to do anything. Because
Well,
the
you
numbers
would still
be
need to
down.
add alkalinity, not as much.
Right, right,
But you're
but-
still gonna have to add alkalinity because you get ammonia from
But
everybody.
we'd still have the delivery problem, we'd still have to have the bags that
Yep.
the workers have got to
That's
open,
true.
and that may be a bigger nightmare than anything, than failing permit. If some people, or if we have an accident at work.
No, it's something we worry about
Yeah,
every day.
Yeah, yeah,
And even more material handling is if we don't touch the existing system, we're still bringing 55-gallon drums of this material with a forklift around the back of the building
no, it's insane.
in cold
Yeah,
and sun
yeah.
and rain and wind and everything else, and then moving it to be transferred by hand. So it just eliminates a lot. It's the right way to do it, is the best way I could say it.
One of the,
But, as far as your other point about treating it at the source, that's really a decision you guys would have to take up. But obviously, point source treatment's always better, like we know what is happening in some of the other places.
but again, the method that you, and the equipment that you're proposing, would be the most streamlined and safest way of doing it and lasting.
Okay.
One of the, another point for me is, we still don't know what the EPA is gonna say on a permit.
Well, they're not gonna, more than likely,
We know it's
you're
not
not,
gonna
they're not gonna loosen their requirements. They're
Yeah.
probably gonna make them more stringent. That's to Peter's point. This system is alkalinity is gonna be required no matter what comes in that permit. The only thing that can change, because your ammonia limit may drop, so in that case, the existing system may not be able to remove all the ammonia it needs to. We know that when we're meeting the normal loading, we're down pretty low. It's only those heavy load days that we struggle. The next thing that will likely happen is to convert the nitrate to denitrify. So basically, you'll get rid of all the ammonia, and then you gotta get rid of the nitrogen that process creates. That's usually the next step, but that's a whole different animal.
Well, Wasn't our last permit, wasn't nitrogen the?
No, it's
the buzz?
ammonia.
Um,
You convert ammonia to nitrate through the nitrification process.
no, okay.
And then through the denitrification process, when you're trying to eliminate total nitrogen, you take that nitrate and you remove it through an anoxic process, which you're not set up to do.
Yep. Okay.
But that's not in your current permit, so it's not an issue.
So, Mr. Chair, as far as the RBC project goes, we approved a preliminary scope of work for Veolia to examine the RBCs and come up with an estimate, which they did, and we went to town meeting to fund it at $107,000, which we took from retained earnings in October. That project, so far, they've spent just under $6,000 to make the repairs and get them up and running. The last part of that is to install the covers and all that work. As John said, I reached out to the initial company who got us who gave us the covers for the other 8, or the other 6 that are inside. I think the price was just over $12,000 each for the covers not installed. What John was saying is to have, because we have to hire someone to come in and install those, make that installation, include that with the scope of work here, so when this project is getting done, have them also install the covers on the RBCs and get that done as well. So therefore, you'd be looking at, of the $107,000 you approved, probably only spending $35,000 if you don't include any extra for installation. So there's definitely some cost savings there, and the remainder that wasn't spent from that appropriation will go back into retained earnings that you can put back into stabilization after, so. There was definitely some cost savings there. That project went a lot better than we anticipated, so it's great to have those up and running, get those covered and get that project completely done, as well as get this project done, and I think all of a sudden it's.
Yeah, like I said, you'll have the fullest capacity you have, excuse me, for nitrogen removal, for ammonia removal. And then you can focus on some of the other issues, the I&I, headworks, things like that.
And under the delivery method, you would basically be supervising the design build.
Correct.
Okay.
It wouldn't be Zachariah, we have a division that does that, yeah.
And it's allowed under our contract, correct?
It is, yeah. Yeah, we contemplated that when we were negotiating with the commission. It's just a simpler, easier delivery method.
And that satisfies our bidding.
Yeah, it all, yeah. And it's all open book, so it's full transparency. You see every invoice, every expense.
But we'd have to verify that through the chief procurement officer, but. So I guess, again, the point is part of discussing annual town meeting with the town administrator and putting in the request for what we need for warrant articles. This wouldn't necessarily be its own separate warrant article. It would fall under the interdepartmental transfers warrant articles that happens in the beginning of the meeting. It would just be a transfer from stabilization to an account that they would set up to fund this project.
What's our drop dead date on that?
The sooner the better, just to get the information out there so that, again, get in front of the finance committee last week. I mentioned it with Mr. Lemansky there, and again, if there's more information you want, then we can get that from Mr. Oatley. If you want to take a meeting to think about it, that shouldn't be a problem. I'll just ask them to leave it there as a placeholder, and we can always remove it at that time. I think I would rather ask that you, if you're considering it, maybe vote to put it on there, and if something changes where you change your mind, we can always remove it or not use it. Just because it gets approved at town meeting doesn't mean you have to use it either. You can always get it approved and then not do the project if something changes and you get new information.
Question, John, is any of the work that needs to be done within the exterior of the site, or is it mostly all interior? Thus meaning it's not weather dependent?
Yeah, it's not weather dependent. Most of it is, there will be some outside work, because there'll need to be a fill station, on the outside, but it's just pipe penetrations. But all the work is inside. The other thing that's gonna happen is, you'll see some of the pictures, the room's gonna get cleaned up, the ceiling's gonna get fixed, there's some, some housekeeping type, things that will be made part of that. So the room will look good, it'll look better, but it's all inside.
I know for me, I think this is a good project, okay? But I think this is a project that we can go to town meeting in October to get. And again, I think that if the 100% of the commission is behind it, you know, because the funds are already there, there's not gonna be a problem getting the funds. I know there's one aspect of this I'd like to take, I'd like to see the commission pursue and, for more information, and, then possibly move forward with it. And again, the big thing is the safety issue.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking. Again, so we don't have the pressure of, geez, you gotta do it before next two weeks, and we're waiting for something else to come in. So. That's where I am. I'm gonna one out of 3 votes right now, so you guys can do whatever you wanna do.
Make a motion if you want to. If we do and we approve something, well, at least when we go to town meeting, it's not something hypothetical, it's something we're really gonna do.
Yeah, but I don't know to what extent we're gonna do it tonight, as far as making
It's
a
up to
motion.
you and Russ.
Well, I definitely think we're headed in that direction, what option we're gonna go with. I mean, definitely looks like it's option 3, but
Yeah,
if
again,
you
that's,
need more information, then by all means.
right, and,
You're gonna get more information.
and that's what our operator is recommending here is option 3.
Correct.
Is the most viable and the one that they'd be most comfortable working with. So, and this makes the operation easier, correct?
Yeah, it absolutely makes the plant,
So the cost
Easier.
of operation should go down.
it just gives us time to do other things,
Okay,
instead of hauling
I-
mechanical around, like
Yeah.
painting and
Yeah.
other things that, you know, still need to be addressed.
And, you know, the plant is a living entity that, there's life stamped on every portion of that plant. You know, whether it's 20 years, 18 years, 12 years, and, you know, this is an ongoing event as far as upgrading and replacing, so.
Yeah, it is a wise investment in that facility. When you look at, you know, what it needs and the way things are currently being managed, it is probably the single biggest improvement we can make currently. I mean, getting the RBCs online was huge. I mean, when we initially looked at it, it was $500,000 each, and we were like, well, turns out it was only $6,000, you know what I mean? So,
No, and
you know,
that's great.
but beyond that, this is the next biggest thing of a current need. I mean, there's always gonna be other needs, but this one's important, simply because of the health and safety aspect more than anything. I mean,
Right.
hauling 55-gallon drums around of caustic is never a good idea.
Agreed.
Is there more information that you're looking for at this time, or you just wanna postpone it until October?
I think it needs to be, this needs to be a constant on the radar. As far as doing a final going to town meeting, I'd like to see it go to October.
Okay.
And the thing is, in the meantime, we can be doing our planning, and then we can be doing our decision-making through deliberation, and then, if everything works out the way it probably should, then we'll be going to town meeting for the funds.
Okay.
But it's, and from the point of view is, the funds are already there. It's, you know, it's just a matter of a transfer.
Mhm.
It's not a matter of getting a vote on town floor to where we're gonna be raising taxes.
I guess from that perspective, Peter, would you wanna at least continue to move forward on the cover install, or would you rather push
Yes,
that?
that's already funded, so if we
Okay.
can get those covers ordered and get those installed, we'll do that separate and then deal with this as it comes forward. I don't think we should hold off on that at all.
I know I recall on the 6 that were put on, we did shop that labor quite a bit and ended up getting a real good value on it. I don't know if those people still exist.
We're
They do.
We're
look
reaching
at that.
out to them.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so you're gonna be looking at probably, those 2 covers will probably cost you $50,000 to $55,000 installed.
With
everything.
ventilation?
With approximate, yes.
Okay, so, and that's relative
It's
to
consistent
what
with what you
okay.
paid previously, yes,
Good,
so.
okay, yeah.
And I guess the only thing, John, is it a like Mr. Lemansky said, the funding's there. Is it a priority to get it done before? So if we wait till the October town meeting, that means it'll be 6 to 7 months from then. So you wouldn't have that alkalinity system up and running until the limit hits our new low in the
Yeah.
spring of 2020.
I mean, so selfishly, Peter, my biggest concern is the health and safety aspect of it, so, you know, I certainly can't pressure the commission to make decisions, but every day that I'm moving material around is a day, you know, in the life. So the biggest issue for me would be trying to get it done as quick as possible so that we're not exposing people to injury, either lifting or exposure, so. But I understand that there's a need for, you know, understanding and exploration of the options, but, you know, for me personally, the sooner the better.
All right, so is that a consensus of what we're gonna do, or? As we're just instructing our administrator to keep this front and center,
Yeah.
and, and we will, it'll definitely be a project that looks like, more than likely we'll be doing in the fall.
We'll keep it on every MOR. Right.
Yep.
Be good.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Anything else you need from us? Okay, great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good night.
This was Zach's first,
Thank you.
first job.
Like you said, glad you got your feet wet.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
All right, moving on, next on the new business is 17A Sunset Drive.
Yes, again, as you know, when this property was sold, it came to light, I mean, sold, I guess, last fall, it came to light that it was connected to the sewer system, and we had no records of it at that time. So we couldn't identify if it was the previous owner or the owner before that who might have done the connection, and where something might have been misplaced or what might have happened, so. The commission kept asking questions about if we could get access to the property to try and get a camera in the line to make sure the connection was done properly and I guess adequately satisfies our standards for connection. I'm talking when the property was transferred, it was mentioned to me that Slim Sewer Service was the one who cambered that line at that time. So I reached out to them previously and asked if they had any, I guess, video footage of that connection, and they said no. And after talking to Mr. Jennings and talking to the owner, are you Kim? So Kim's the owner. I called back Slim Service and asked them if they could write up a report of what they found at that time when they did that inspection to see if that will satisfy your concerns, rather than having to get back out onto the property and duplicate that type of inspection. So in front of you, you have a letter from Slim Sewer that it identifies what they found, and if that's satisfactory, then we can go ahead and put this to bed. If you have further questions, Kim is here, and we can talk to her about them and what you want to do.
I personally, this is exactly what I would hope to find, and glad that it was found. Something that states someone qualified and inspected the property, and determined that things are in a good working order because the connection was done without knowledge to the commission. So therefore, you don't know what was done, how it was done. And that's a big question and it needs to be answered. This answers that question by someone who does a lot of work in town and is familiar with this stuff.
We did request at the time that was purchasing the property, that all the bills and everything were up to code and up to date, and at that point, I guess, is when we realized and informed you guys that the bills had never been paid for the sewer bill. The connection had been made at some point, but I don't know when. So my lawyer had requested that they run a camera down, that the sellers have a camera put down to make sure that it was properly connected, so that I wouldn't run into a problem. Thankfully.
Well, thanks for coming this evening.
And I
Thanks
don't
for
have a
getting
problem
this.
with you guys going on my property, but I work in Malden. I'm a bakery coordinator for a production plant. And, we've been working a lot of weekends, so I'm never around, unfortunately. And I just wanted to be there. It wasn't that I don't want you to put a camera down there, I just,
Sure.
you know.
Well, with this letter, I personally, I don't see the need to.
No,
It's been done.
Right.
Yes, it's in
Would you
excellent
mind
condition, so.
coming up to the microphone? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Not trying to put you on the spot, but in case someone at home is saying, geez, what's the lake lady saying? But, all right, so as far as the cammering goes, I know myself, I'm satisfied with this ladder.
I am.
All right, but what I'm not, I guess, comfortable with is has nothing to do with you. Is but when you bought the property, you were told it was connected to sewer?
Correct.
And who told you that?
The buyers had to ensure that it was connected. They weren't sure, the sellers weren't sure if it was, they had never received a bill from the time that they bought the property.
Okay.
So they didn't know if it was a septic system or connected to, they thought it was connected to the sewer, but they were not sure.
Okay,
So I received a bill for all of last year, which I paid,
sure.
and I've paid up to date on this, even though I didn't live there all of last year. We just moved in September, but
And how long did the previous owners own the property?
that I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not
so
sure.
Because usually if it's a septic system, on
They
a
would have to have it
transfer,
pumped.
on a transfer of real estate, you gotta do a Title V.
Mhm.
Title V includes a pump job, so I'm just, it seems like something went on behind the scenes, not that you were involved with, but there were other characters
Right.
who just tried to, whether, you know, did this property ever pay a betterment fee?
Yes.
Oh, it did pay a betterment fee?
Yeah, they had to finish paying off for the,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
They
I
had
knew that was
betterment fee,
taken care of,
But
but,
there was never any record of connection.
Correct, there was a lateral left as part of the
Okay,
project
okay.
for the property, and there was a betterment assessed. It's
Okay.
just, and again, it's hard to know, maybe something got misplaced in our office when the connection was
Sure.
made. So it's one thing to say it could have been done on a
Right,
weekend or
yeah,
at night. It's
yeah.
another thing to say, well, maybe something happened where it fell through the cracks and
Fine.
wasn't entered in the VADA,
Fine,
but we can't find any records of it in our office.
And there were no bills prior.
Correct, because as far as we knew, it wasn't considered. And I guess what I guess brought this whole thing up is the Realtor called and asked for a final bill for the property, and we looked up the property and it wasn't in VADA, so it wasn't getting billed, so we said there wasn't sewer.
Yeah.
And then they called back and said, well, we cambered the line, it's connected, and that's when we looked at it further.
Okay. Well, the good news is everything looks like it's turned out fine. And thank you for paying that bill, and I guess we'll just move on.
Start from scratch, yeah.
Yes, so thank you for coming.
you're welcome.
Um,
Thank you for all
and,
your hard
hopefully
work.
This will be
Appreciate
it,
it.
so, all right, great,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just a comment here is, we've got a letter here, but it's not signed. I remember submitting letters to this board that weren't signed. It was like, you know, oh my God, it's not signed. This is invalid. Anyways, moving on, thank you.
And it said everything was in good shape, no
Yeah.
groundwater
Exactly,
infiltration.
Exactly.
Everything cambered they cambered from the house to the road, everything was in great condition. No perimeter drains were tied in, so that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's all we need to know.
Agreed.
Great.
Okay, moving on, site plan review for Charlton Optical.
Yes, so attached is a preliminary site plan that Charlton Optical is submitting to the planning board. They are currently connected to water and are planning to connect to municipal sewer as part of this project. You'll see the proposed, I know it's hard to read, but this is the only size plan that I got. Looks like an 800 square foot expansion.
Did I say 516 square feet?
It might be, that's a 5 or an 8.
Yeah, yeah. Does that need a special permit, Pete?
For us?
No, for the owner property.
I'm not sure. It is 500, so the current building is 1,161 square feet. Proposed addition is 516. It's approximately 123 feet by 12 feet.
Yeah.
And they already have a sewer stub on the property.
There is a sewer stub that's been identified, yes, to the property. And it's currently connected to water.
So what's the issue?
There is no issue. It's just it's a proposed connection, it's a site plan that's going in front of planning boards. Planning board always asks us for comments on their site plans. So if there are no comments, I will forward that to the planning board, just so they have that for their records.
Yep.
And again, so what I'm trying to do is any site plan that goes in, whether it's a subdivision lot, whether it's on water or on sewer, anywhere in town, they send it to our office. They send it to every department in town. The ones that do not have water or sewer access or implications, I haven't been forwarding to you. But this one, because it's gonna be a new connection to sewer, because it's gonna be additional square footage, I just figured we could put it in front of you and discuss it, and, again, if there's no concerns, I'll forward that to the, planning board. The only question is as far as privilege fees go. My guess is he received a betterment based on 1,100 square feet of retail. He's adding an additional 500 square feet. To be consistent with what's been done, there should be a privilege fee that's calculated based on that additional square footage and a Title V usage. So, if the owner gets approval, if this plan is approved, I'll talk to the owner about that when he comes in to discuss the connection permit at that time.
So you're just talking about sewer?
Correct, he's already, water, we can talk about the water when we talk about water privilege fees coming up here.
I think
and
he's
what you
exempt
decide to
because
do.
of the Exxonmobil, isn't he?
In that area, yes.
As I recall, the plan that we were looking at the other day, actually, no, the plan we were looking at went from L. Stevens back to Route 20.
Yes.
Okay.
Because Masonic Road is not part of the free connections.
Isn't this part of the Charlton Center group?
This is part of the town group, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah,
And
I
I'm
think
not
so.
sure if he was part of that or not, so,
I think he's automatically part of it just because of the
because
location.
of the location, so.
Yeah, and I don't know what his water readings were.
Yep.
But-
I just know he's already connected, I haven't, and,
Right.
so my guess would be that because he's in such close proximity to the previous highway barn, that there was probably no connection fee or privilege fee at that time, so.
I think the fund still exists at the selectman's office.
There, I'm sure there's still a fund somewhere for
Right.
some type of connection like that, yes.
Very good. Okay, well, wish the owner good luck and
Yes.
we'll move on.
Okay. The FY 2020 budget, just a follow-up from our last meeting. At that time, for the water and sewer budget, there was no, I guess, instruction to make any changes, so Mr. Lemansky and I went and presented the budgets as they were presented to you. Mr. Lemansky aired the concerns about the indirect costs to the finance committee. They were gonna look into a few things and try and get some information from Robin. And I don't think they'd get back to us or discuss it further in the future, but they didn't give us any immediate response on whether or not there was anything they'd be willing to do with those indirect costs, so. I know we also talked about staffing levels, so.
If I may interrupt for a second there, Peter, I
Sure.
believe that they were gonna do was turn the pages back to see how the indirect cost was calculated some 4 to 5 years ago,
Yes,
because I believe it was definitely different than the way they're doing it now.
yes,
And, again, my objection was, why are you changing the formula? And my observation is because with the new formula, it maintains, the indirect cost at the high level that it's at, versus if you kept this formula that you had 4 to 5 years ago, that indirect cost would be coming down, down, and down, because it was based on outstanding debt. So, and I just didn't think it was fair for them to change the way that they calculate it. And in the meantime, also, I know that we've got a new, in those years, we went from one accountant to another accountant. So I thought they were gonna, my understanding is they were gonna look,
correct.
To
That's
get
the information they asked Robin to provide, is how it was previously calculated before they went to this method.
okay. Okay.
Right? I mean,
Well, no, I thought I had a copy.
Oh,
And I looked for it just before I came, and that was my problem. I should have looked for it earlier, but I found it 3-4 days ago, but when I went to re-look for it, it's somehow, someone broke in my house and stole it. No, I'm kidding. But I'll come across it. You know, I'm not gonna let go.
No, and I guess I think, again, we'll see what the selectman's office or the finance director's office provides for that previous method as well.
Yeah, Keith.
It should be consistent with what you had.
Yeah, it was Keith. Keith had come up with the formula back then.
So is there any other discussion the board wants to have about the budget, or that's the only outlying thing right now? Okay. So we'll wait to hear what the finance committee has to say about the indirect costs then, moving forward. So, next on the agenda is, again, continued discussion about the Exxonmobil settlement account. Again, attached is the disbursement, I guess, breakdown of how the $8 million was broken down and dispersed. There has been some confusion that's come to light today, actually. The $2.68 million that's on the bottom line there is what was transferred into the general fund. From that, there was $450,000 that was appropriated to do the existing work that they're doing for the public safety complex building. I recently asked what the balance was in that account, and I was told it was $2.68 million, but there was some confusion because the finance director took the $450,000 that was approved at town meeting from out of our $1.5 million receipt reserved for appropriation of the water capital projects. So she's gonna transfer that back in and take it out of this $2.68 million that town meeting approved it to be taken out of.
Couple things. Your first statement about the 2.683 that was transferred at town meeting from the Exxon fund into the general fund, I would have qualified that as it was a mistaken transfer. Because when you read the press release of how the money was supposed to be distributed, it doesn't say anything about the general fund.
Well, the press release is attached,
Okay.
and it talks about the repayment of debt. Correct? So
Yep.
under item 2 on page 2,
Yep.
it says $7,750,000 cash settlement from ExxonMobil to the town of Charlton. Note, the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer Commission voted to use funds to pay off water debt, cancel all assessed water betterments, and credit those who have already been paid. The remaining funds shall support water department, operation, capital expansion, design, as approved by town meeting. So, before the water betterments were assessed, and this is, again, this is going based on my discussion with Mrs. Craver, following up your last meeting and asking her why these funds are where they are based on our discussions we had. Looking at the breakdown, it paid down the water betterment reimbursement was $450,000. The water debt payment was $2.8 million. Now, that doesn't cover the entire project cost. That was just what was remaining for debt. So between the Route 20 project and the Charlton Center project, I believe you were right around $4.5 to $5 million in water debt, if I'm not mistaken. And most of the Route 20 project is the one where the debt was assessed when the project was completed in 2001, and the general fund paid that debt until betterments were assessed in 2012, 13? Is that about when they were done?
What was done in 2012, 2013?
Water betterments. When was the 50% water betterment assessed?
2016?
Yeah, it was late.
So from 2002, 3, or 4 till 2016, the general fund paid that water debt on that Route 20 project.
What was US Gen paying?
Millennium
Millennium, yeah.
was paying a portion of that, not the entire
Okay,
scope.
but we don't have any accounting of that, do we?
There will be an accounting, yes.
Yeah, it will be, because again, the fear of losing 2.68 million will make you do a lot of things.
So-
I think, my reading of the statement here is, water and sewer voted to use funds to pay off water debt, semicolon. In other words, this is the definition of the water debt, is cancel all the assessed water betterments and credit those who have already paid. And the remaining funds shall support the water department operations, capital expenses design as appropriated by town. I don't see anywhere in here, I don't know, unless you can help me out here, where does it say that water and sewer gets $1.5 million?
Nowhere, but that's how town meeting voted to break it up. I'm not sure if you were involved in that or not, but
I don't think I would've missed it.
that's how those accounts were created at town meeting.
Then I'm pointing out it was a mistake.
I understand.
Okay, and that's why we need to go back to town meeting.
Yes.
And let town meeting figure out how they wanna do it. And I specifically recall that the money for the new, the fireplace,
Public safety complex?
fire station, police department, was to come from the monies from VGG, the 500,000. I think it was even in writing that that's where the funds were gonna come to fund this pre-expense of design and things like that. It wasn't supposed to come, it did not say coming out of the Exxonmobil funds.
Again, I just got that information this
I'll-
afternoon, so
I'll-
I'll find the town meeting warrant, it'll be in the article of
Okay.
of where the funds was coming from. There should be zero discrepancies in that, because whatever the motion said is where it was coming from.
Right, and if the motion said, if that's what it said, then that's what it said, but I don't believe it did say that, and I could be mistaken. I've been mistaken before, but I'm fairly sure the 400,000 was like, it's not costing the townspeople any money, because this is a gift that the town was getting. That's what I recall. So, and I think that, there's no reason why we as commissioners shouldn't be taking the position that, based on the press release of 2016, when this was fresh in everybody's mind, that it was clear that the balance of the funds were to go to water and sewer, for water and sewer projects. Because that's what we have here. We had someone who poisoned our town, and it's our job to try to make whatever corrections we can. So,
Well, Peter will track down the information.
I'll get the article for the appropriation for $450,000, but I think that's a small piece of what you're trying to accomplish, so.
right, but I think it's,
I think if what you wanna do is to try and make the remaining $2.2 million part of water sewer only, then that's, again, I think this agreement was a joint agreement between the Water Sewer Commission and the Board of Selectmen.
and ExxonMobil.
Yes, but from this side, from our side, the Board of Selectmen and Water Sewer Commission worked together to create that agreement. So if you're I think and this money was transferred into this account at a town meeting. It wasn't just done on a whim. It was approved by town meeting. My understanding.
I'd have to see the article.
And again, I'm sure I will find,
Yeah.
I will try and get that. I don't think you can create a receipt reserve for appropriation, put money in it without
Well-
town meeting approving it.
And also, the town can't be spending money unless it's already been designated, and there's a line item for that money to be spent. and I don't recall a line item of $400,000 to be spent for that project to where the money was coming out of Exxonmobil. Because also, even in the, from what you read, Peter, our remaining funds shall support the Water and Sewer Department, and then as appropriated by town meeting. So we can't, and no one else can spend any money unless it's been appropriated by town meeting.
Well, most definitely.
Right, so, and again, I don't recall, and like I said it again, is I could be mistaken, I don't recall $400,000 being appropriated at budget time to be
It might
taken
have
out
not
of the.
been, it could have been a special town meeting.
It
doesn't
could
have to be a
been.
budget
It could have been, or it could have been, oh geez, VGG is now not happening anytime too soon, where are we gonna get the 400 grand?
I don't,
Aha.
it's in, okay. I will verify
with-
if
yeah.
there was a town meeting warrant article to fund that $450,000 from this receipt reserve for appropriation. To follow up on trying to transfer the two, whatever's remaining in that last line item into an account for water sewer only, that still has to go to town meeting vote.
Exactly, so that's what we can do at this town meeting, is to correct the mistakes that have been made in the past.
So I would, again, we have you posted for tomorrow or on the selectmen's agenda. I'd recommend that we go sit down with them to talk about, well, I guess, where the discrepancies are and see what they have to say.
Personally, I think it's pretty clear where the discrepancies are. I have no interest in going.
If the board feels the same way, then that's fine. I can cancel that meeting with them, and I can ask for the warrant article to be placed on, and we can discuss it on town meeting floor only, but
I think that's the direction.
I'd like to make a motion that the article gets placed on town meeting as far as the $2.6 million. That's to, that those funds are to be deposited in the water sewer account and only appropriated by town meeting.
Second.
Sure there's no more discussion on it. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 When do you think you'll have that information?
hopefully by the end of the week. I'll,
Okay.
whatever I get for information, I'll email to the board, so you don't have to wait for it,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
I'll share whatever I find, Peter.
No, that's good. So the motion referenced the 2.68. If town meeting appropriated the 450 from here, and do you wanna just say the balance of what's left here? Or are you gonna try and get the
You
450
can,
back as
well,
well?
I think before long before that, we're gonna find out if, exactly what that article said, Peter.
Yep.
And if he didn't
All
say it, then it's 2.6.
No, understood,
Okay.
understood. Okay, so I'll make that request. Do you want me to go to the Board of Selectmen meeting tomorrow to explain that request? So that they understand why we're asking to have it put on the warrant?
Yeah,
Whatever you wanna do.
sure.
Yeah.
Why
I
not?
think that's
Yeah.
reasonable to.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, I will do that. So moving forward about the remaining town meeting warrant articles, the first one, I guess we have the first two articles will be the water budget and the sewer budget, which are approved separately at the beginning of the meeting. We're still kind of in discussion with them regarding the indirect expenses. The next article that I discussed was the possibility of the transfer from sewer stabilization to fund the alkalinity control project, which was just put off till October, so I'll ask them to withdraw that. So that does not need to be considered. The third article is to fund the purchase of the two properties off of Gale Road, for the development of the public water supply well. So we will have a lot more, Peter Newton started drilling today, we'll have more information in the next couple of weeks, but to get it onto the warrant, we need to at least put a placeholder there for now. So it's there and it's held, so that if we get good information back from Peter, that will be on there, so Again, I think my point tomorrow to go to the Board of Selectmen will be to just discuss all of these warrant articles together, not just one.
Yep.
And the last one will be to talk about the transfer of the Exxonmobil settlement money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that should be pretty straightforward, and we'll do that.
Excuse me, Peter, you're planning on going to town meeting?
Am I? Yes.
Oh, no, I'm just checking, I mean,
No.
I don't think,
It's May 20th, yeah. No, I'll be there.
okay, all right, fine. So you will be speaking towards these,
Yes.
if need be?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yep.
Definitely. So moving on to the water privilege connection fees. This is kind of a reintroduction to the information I provided at the last meeting, trying to see if we can, I guess, move forward. I didn't get any requests for further information, so I just kind of put the same information here to see if there's any way for us to kind of move forward. So I think it's important to come up with some type of direction sooner than later, because you're gonna have possibly a new connection being done at Healthwise marijuana facility, and if they're gonna come to request a connection, what are we gonna charge them, if anything? Currently, it's a $100 connection, permit fee, and that's all, so.
Connection fee, not a privilege fee.
Correct, right, it's a permit fee for water, correct? It's just a $100 permit fee.
But you do have the privilege fees.
We have the privilege fee that was so, moving forward, does the board want me to implement that previous privilege fee that was voted? It's never been implemented before, so I just need, I haven't gotten that. If that's what you want me to do, then if you could make a vote, then I'll implement that and
Okay.
use that moving forward.
I'll make a motion that we have our superintendent exercise the privilege fees as previously voted by this commission.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
I would just like to say is that, again, if we find that there's if there's room for improvement, I don't think it's outside of the realm to modify.
I understand, I just wanna,
Yeah,
there's currently nothing. So all I need is, this direction is fine, I'll take it and I'll move forward with it. And I'm gonna implement this $2,447.16 per EDU, much like we calculate for sewer.
right. I don't know if we can, I guess I don't wanna change sewer, but if we're doing this for water, I'd like some consideration to be given to, that on the EDU method for sewer, they would use 200 gallons as far as a single-family home.
Yep.
And when it came to commercial, they would use Title V and then divide 200 into whatever Title V came up to, and that commercial would end up paying that amount. So if a commercial, according to Title V, was 500 gallons, then they'd divide 200 into the 500, get 2.5, so it'd be 2.5 times the EDU rate. So if it was a sewer at 8,200, then it would be 2.5 of those. So there'd be $20,000. And the thing is, ratio-wise, it's unfair to the commercial user, because they're not getting the benefit of the safety factor that's in Title V has been given to the single-family home, where 330 gallons became 200. So, that we need to look into, that we need to address, I think.
So do you wanna make a motion that I use Title V commercial numbers and at a factor of 0.7?
I think it'd be 0.6. It's 0.6, yeah, because,
0.66 or
yeah, well, no,
0.6?
well,
I don't think it's 0.6, I think it's,
60% of 330 is 198. And I believe that's how they got to 200.
so I would, if you're anticipating going that direction, I would say it's a minimum of 1 EDU, in case that
Yep.
0.6 brings it down below, and that anything over 1 is, from there. So you're still 200 gallons per 1 EDU.
Yep.
And that, any minimum of 1, and you do a 0.6, a 60% factor of calculated Title V commercial flow.
Okay, I think that's fair. Or it's correct, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's equitable, I guess is the term. Want to
So-
make that into a motion?
I would. Like
All right,
you
so
to, yes.
repeat what you had there, Pete.
So for commercial users, as far as this privilege fee goes, it'll be a minimum of 1 EDU based on a 0.6% factor of Title V calculated flows of their use.
Okay,
Is there a second?
so moved. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm still a no because I don't like the privilege fee. I prefer the, connection fee. So,
And I have, as I discussed last meeting, I have absolutely no problem with changing the system to something like this if we can come to some more reasonable numbers.
we were just deciding which way to go. We didn't decide on either one, connection fee or privilege, well, you did privilege fee now with
Well-
numbers, but, we don't
Because-
have to obtain, abstain by those at all. We can change them any way we need to see fit.
And the reason why I made the motion, Paul, is because you guys had already voted on this years ago. Unfortunately, for years, no one's enforced the policy, and no one has charged the people coming in on the system. And that has to stop. I mean, they have to be charged
I
something.
understand we
So-
gotta do something, but.
This is already in place in my eyes, and until we actually come to a consensus of a different amount and method, fall back on what you guys voted on years ago, but enforce the policy. And
Because
that's,
from what I understand, almost all the other towns go with a connection fee, not with a privilege fee. And I don't know why Charlton should stand out as being different. Rob says it's less money. Well, it might be less money, taking in than the privilege fee might take it in, but then I'm in favor of the customer paying it, not on of the municipality receiving it, So I think, a connection fee might be a little bit more user-friendly than the privilege fee, and I'm all for that. And either way, Peter was saying last week too, that either fee is not gonna pay for the expenses of delivering the water. So if neither one is gonna do that and we have to rely on the other fees for selling the water and stuff, then why get somebody in? And it takes more accounting, because if you go with a privilege fee, it might most likely gonna be taken over a certain number of years, whereas a connection fee is usually a one-shot deal paid right up front. And so that's just kinda why I'm that way, and I kinda think Alex was favoring, the connection fee too, but he's not here tonight, so, I have no idea what Jen feels on it, but.
I have a question. If you go with that, the 6% and the EDUs, are they gonna have to pay that upfront? Or are we gonna let them finance that?
I would recommend that it be a one-time payment, because it's really difficult for the
Yeah.
town to track all those privilege fees, because they don't, our software doesn't allow them to differentiate, but I guess there are no more betterments, but I recommend, just to keep things clean, that it just be assessed as a one-time payment.
The only, first of all, Paul, I don't necessarily disagree with what you just said as far as why we should do one versus the other. But you do have to remember why Charlton is different than so many of other towns who have water systems. Those water systems were developed 40, 50, 60, 80 years ago. And the base had been paid for by, back then, either by the taxpayers, or they actually had a betterment system. And as you know, the betterment system that the state has is that if you're gonna charge someone a betterment, you have to charge the betterment to where everyone takes the total cost and is divided amongst the people. So what towns do is if it's an extension that's being put in, and the extension is being put in by the developer, then the developer ends up paying for it, and then he ends up granting it to the town, and they pay a gift tax. If in fact a local neighborhood wants water, then that neighborhood will then pay the betterment charge. So where we are is, there was a decision made back 15 years ago as far as redoing Route 20, that we put the water line in, and that was done. And then we also did these other extensions, and because the water wasn't on, we couldn't charge any money. Then we had learned about doing this 50% thing, and that's what we did for the school loop. So I think that it's wise for the department to be able to build up a fund so that at some point in time, when it comes time to replace this, that there will be a sizable amount of dollars there that will help with the replacement. And by just charging a fee of, whether it's a $4,000 fee, a one-time $6,000, for a larger size, 12 or 16,000, that's not gonna come close to what it's gonna take in order to long-range plan for, are we gonna have funds there to be able to replace these pipes? So that's why I'm kind of saying we need to be where we are.
We're not paying for it, Mobil's paying for it, but all the houses on the school loop are being charged a connection fee. Mobil's gonna be paying Salvage or us,
Right.
depending.
Yep.
So why should some houses be given a connection fee and other houses be subjected to a privilege fee?
Right, and the other houses, and the only houses that are gonna be subjected to the privilege fee are those who are not in the service area that Exxonmobil is doing. So if there's a house that's on Masonic Home Road, and now that with the water line's going down there and they wanna connect to it, they have to pay a privilege fee. Because they're being offered a service that wasn't there, and it's now there, and to just say, oh, you got a $6,000 connection, I don't think that's relative to the actual cost of what it has cost to bring the water up there, to create the tanks and create the system.
So the house to the left and the house to the right had a $2,000 connection fee paid to somebody, to us
To
or something.
Southbridge, yep.
And the house in the middle now is gonna be charged a privilege fee because he didn't hook up at that exact time.
The only ones who are being charged the privilege fee are those to where Exxonmobil is not doing a connection. If
Because they
you,
weren't affected.
correct, they're not part of the service area of where this pollution took place. And Paul, I don't have to tell you, you've drilled enough wells in your life that, and paid for them, you'd sign the contract right now and say, every well that you drill is gonna be $6,000, you'd say, hurry up, give me the paper, because you know how it can just get carried away with the treatment systems and things like that. So I don't think we're out of line as far as the cost of somebody, and I do agree that if in fact someone's in an area to where there was that the area was affected, Exxonmobil has stepped up, and that's probably, the sun is gonna set on people connecting probably in about 2 years from now. And if they choose not to connect, because ExxonMobil's gonna have a strong effort to go from house to house, knock on doors and saying, do you wanna connect? Because also, the motivation for ExxonMobil is they wanna plug up as many of these wells as possible so that the pollution doesn't get transferred throughout the aquifer, and that's one of the ways of doing it. So, I don't think it's unfair. What I do think is that some consideration should be given that if we have a user, a new user that's coming online, and their EDU charges over, whether it be set at $25,000, $50,000, we may say we would take that money over time. All right, but, we would have to set that up on an individual basis, I guess. And the thing is there's no difference between, I say that there is a difference between, as far as the assessors go, between privilege and betterment fees, but it's pretty much the same track, other than One goes in the red column, the other one goes in the blue column, but you deal with them the same way.
But if you're looking at a business and they're saying they're gonna use that volume of water,
Yep.
and it's gonna be a fee of $25,000 or $50,000, I mean, to not connect to water and to provide themselves with that amount of water any other way,
Yep.
$25,000 or $50,000 is a deal to that company.
Exactly.
And clearly, that's a cost of doing business that they're fully recognizing coming into the game and saying, we're gonna be pulling vast amounts of water from Charlton and.
Exactly, and also, Russ, if in fact their usage and the people or the amount of customers that they serve, if they serve more than 25 people or 15 hookups, they're now considered by the state as a public water supply. The engineering alone for a public water supply, in other words, all the paperwork is gonna be between $35,000 and $50,000
Yeah.
all by itself. So the amount of benefit that a commercial user, industrial user benefits by having public water, it's huge. Absolutely huge. And I'm not saying, because that's what their cost is, we need to cash in on it. All I'm saying is we need to be able to create a base so that we have the fund there to when the time comes to replace some of this infrastructure, that we have the funds to do it. And doing it at $2,000 to $5,000 a crack it's not gonna do it.
No, and I agree with you, and I also believe that, it's no different than assessments. You're providing a service and you wanna make it so that the service costs less than you can do business elsewhere for.
Right, and all,
And on a private house, on any well that you would drill, north of $6,000, $7,000 all day long.
just for a single family.
Yeah.
Right, and the benefit.
And then you don't know what you're getting.
Right, and also, don't forget, we as a town want to be able to provide this service to commercial industrial users, just to help to build up our business base in town from a tax point of view, and also for employment. And by having public water, it allows them to come into our town, versus the statement of, no public water, no sewer, I'm not going to your town, period. So, we have that, and the thing is, I think we're being fair.
I think when everyone voted this in, it was a fair decision. And until we come to something that's different, I'm in favor of what you guys voted before on. So let's get the money for the town.
All right, so we're all set?
Yes, what I'd like to do is create a policy based on the motions that were approved tonight, and I'll present that at your next meeting. If something comes up in the meantime, we'll let them know. Like what happened with the new Kid Power building happened on Route 20, when he came in front of us for a connection, we told him there was gonna be a water privilege fee, but we didn't know what it was gonna be at that time, so he had to be aware of it, so we'll, let him know that it's been decided what it is, and like I said, I think if Sue and I work on drafting that policy, it'll kind of identify everything that was discussed and how it's gonna be computed, and it should be pretty straightforward enough that we can all kind of agree on it, understand it, and make it easy to implement.
Vacation request.
Vacation requests, I'd like to, if you would indulge me, to take time off from Friday, April 19th through probably half a day, Wednesday, April 24th. Unfortunately, you do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, April 22nd. Steve will be able to be here to cover my absence. Again, I know there's a meeting, but if it wasn't important, I wouldn't ask for this time off.
Make a motion, we approve the vacation request.
Second.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Great, thank you. And lastly, water line construction update. So today was a big day, a lot started to happen. As far as Berry Corner Road goes, we'll be having our first construction meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. in Southbridge, at the Southbridge DPW building. And probably discuss when Ludlow will start working up on Eastford Road again, and to talk about their construction schedule and what their start of work is gonna look like. The school loop, Albanese Brothers started their start date today. They had 2 crews going. One was on L. Stevens Road and the second was on Old Worcester Road. So they're out there this morning digging, putting pipe in the ground, so that started and it's moving forward. The Route 169 pump station, we're awaiting delivery of the pump station. Oh, back to the school loop. Mr. Lemansky and I attended a meeting last week with the DEP. Mark Baldy from the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup contacted Robin Craver to set up an update meeting with Exxonmobil, Kleinfelder, and us to talk about this construction schedule for the school loop. So we attended it last, was it Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday. And Exxonmobil and Kleinfelder were there to give a construction update on what they anticipate to happen this year. They are planning on having all of the water main installed to the curb stop by the end of this construction season on L. Stevens Road, Old Worcester Road, Morton Station, Mugget Hill Road, and H. Putnam Road. So they, as I said, they currently have 2 crews going today. They plan on having 3, 4, or 5 crews going throughout the remainder of this construction season to try and get all of that work completed. So they should have quite a bit going on. Other than that, it's moving forward. The Route 169 pump station, we're awaiting delivery of the pump station. Should be getting at the end of April. Chris McClure attended the pump station run test on Monday, March 18th, and said everything went well. Said the pump station design is a little bit over-designed to our benefit, but he was very impressed by the pump station.
Just let the commission know that the location of the pump test was 7 hours away from here, up in New York State, so.
Bay Path and Overlook pump stations, there's nothing new to report from the previous meeting. They've been designed, Albanese Brothers was awarded the contract, and they're gonna have to go out to bid, go out to bid and award the design to have those pump stations be built. And the Buffinville Public Water Supply, Peter Newton started today with Mayor drilling with the geoprobe machine. So they were up there. They got a slow start because they couldn't get their accessory truck up to the top of the hill where they're doing the drilling. So they got the small drill rig up there, started drilling, but they couldn't bring the truck up to get it water. So they're gonna come in tomorrow with a generator to pump from our well into small tanks and just transport stuff with a gator instead of bringing the truck all the way into the site. So if anyone's interested in stopping by to see what the process is, I plan on being there in and out most of the days this week, but Thursday, if the commission wants to go, we can set up a time where we can all kind of head in there and meet with Peter and see what the drilling process is and how the coring process is and what he gets for I guess, data and how he gets it from the ground. So it's kind of a neat process if you haven't seen it. So if you'd like, let me know. I'll reach out to you guys, but I'm planning on setting up a time Thursday morning if you want to get all you guys together and be able to get you out onto site fairly easy, rather than having to walk all the way in, because you can't drive in. And because it's in the woods, the frost isn't out of the ground, so the more you go back and forth over the access road, the worse it's gonna get. So if you're interested, let me know, and if not, that's all I have, unless you guys have some questions for me.
I had a question, Pete. Pete, would you mind looking up the exact language on reimbursement from Exxonmobil on engineering oversight? I believe the time period was 2.5 years, and I think we're gonna be over the 2.5 years, so we might have to go back for an alternate request for additional funds. I don't know if it's in that or if it's in the actual.
No, this is Exhibit H, reimbursement of construction fees costs, where it talks about $100,000 per year for payments.
Yeah, how many years?
It doesn't say. I'm looking.
It's capped, I believe it's capped either at 2 or 250, and also our requirement.
No, the 250 was what they funded this position at. Maybe,
Okay.
maybe you're getting that confused.
I could, but I thought
But this is Exhibit H that references,
okay,
that's Exhibit H of the settlement agreement, which references those engineering costs that you're
Okay.
talking, the reimbursement of engineering costs. I have a spare copy of
okay.
that if you wanna
I
take it.
guess, so then, to continue on the same line of question, is when did it
I
stop?
think,
This agreement was
Are
signed
you-
February 15th, 2017.
are you, is the $200,000 number coming from Berry Corner Edgefoot Road?
No. No, I thought that, Peter, what number did you say this was?
That's Exhibit H. That's its own exhibit for construction costs only. This is the full settlement agreement.
Okay, and,
But in this agreement, it referenced Exhibit H for reimbursement of the fees that you're talking about. Now, the funding of a water superintendent, Exxonmobil should,
right, here it is, right here. Exxon agrees to accept the following water sewer regulations. Acknowledge that it was created after the agreement in principle, providing that Exxonmobil fees are limited to $100,000 per year. So, when did the year start? Did it start when we started putting the water line in down on 169?
probably started when they, my guess would be it started when they started reimbursing McClure Engineering's expenses,
Okay,
after this agreement. And my thought process would be that you started submitting, McClure invoices immediately upon signing this, so.
actually, we didn't, Peter, not that I know of, and not that I
Well, I
have.
think,
Because is it going directly from McClure to ExxonMobil in the payment made to McClure, or is it going through our office? Because again, we don't.
not to, I'm not trying to be smart, but it happens a little bit differently every time for random reasons, so.
But you're a pretty smart guy.
Thank you. But, I'm just, saying, right, it's come both ways, and that's why I'm looking at Sue.
Okay,
Because sometimes, we get a McClure bill and we forward it to Kleinfelder. Kleinfelder sometimes pays us, sometimes they pay sometimes they pay McClure directly, sometimes they pay us both.
Right.
So, it's
Okay.
different we get a McClure bill, when we get a McClure bill that's tagged ExxonMobil,
Yeah.
we forward that to Kleinfelder. When we get a McClure invoice that's tagged Casella, we forward that to Heather Blakely.
Okay.
So sometime, I don't remember us ever paying an ExxonMobil invoice. So,
No, because it would have been on.
would have been through you, correct?
Right. Past that time.
So did you see a timeframe of 2.5 years? I know
No,
you said 100,000 per year, but I don't recall seeing a timeframe on that reimbursement. And again, I would think that that
Okay.
exhibit lasts the duration of the construction project.
Okay,
So, I can talk to Chris and see if we bumping up if he can look at a 12-month window based on his QuickBooks or whatever, and see if we're
All right.
bumping up on that
again, just share the
100,000, but
information figured out,
but I
so
don't
that,
think so.
right,
There hasn't been any discussion about any concerns of bumping up against
okay.
that $100,000 number.
For a final motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and to meet,
Second.
we're gonna meet 2 weeks, Peter?
Meeting April 8th,
April 8th.
2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.